Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. We are continuing our run of John Byrne's West Coast Avengers slash Avengers West Coast run. We are in issue number 50. This is from 1988. And John Byrne is continuing his saga. He had a very specific um, story in mind, and that's what we're doing. He was also writing Avengers, and Paul Ryan was his penciler in Avengers, but he wrote and drew Avengers West Coast. Here we see the Human Torch being brought or coming through the grave, and here we see Wasp, we see Scarlet Witch, we see the Vision, and we see Wonder Man. John Byrne inked the cover himself as well. He does not ink the insides. We now get the return of Mike Macklin, I believe it is, and Return of the Hero. John Byrne, writer, and with Mike Macklin, it says here artist inker, so I don't know. John Byrne may be inking some panels himself, but for the most part, we see Mike Macklin. Now, Mike Macklin reminds me a lot of Brett Breeding, except he does a lot more hatching than Brett Breeding does here. And so we see the wife of Toro, the companion, I would say, of the original Human Torch here. And so she is meeting the West Coast Avengers here and says, "Please, I've traveled all the way from New York. It's taken weeks. I spent my last cent. You've got to help me find out what really happened to my husband. If you don't, I'm sure I'll go mad." So, this is a thread from the previous issue here. So, I forgot to continue with the credits here. Sorry. Bill Oakley, Bob Sharon, Howard Mackey, and Tom DeFalco continue here. So, all right. And then you can see these inks are definitely not John Byrne, and a lot of screen tones. But this guy seems to apply the same type of screen tones here. So, we get a double page spread. Every time I see a double page splash, my apologies. I always think of Bendis because he runs a lot of these. So the U.S. agent with Steve Walker says, "All right, now, ma'am, calm down, take it easy. The Avengers were created to help people in distress, but you've got to tell us your story clearly." Now, Wonder Man makes something makes a especially now in 2025 as of this recording. Well, I'd never have expected a resident fascist to have such a sweet bedside manner. And so then he asks about the woman, and we've got the Wasp, who is not quite little, not quite big. She's kind of gotten herself in this midway point here, and she says, "No way to know until she tells us, Simon. The robot ground speaker found her after she tried to climb the south wall." And then Hank Pym, who is just Hank Pym, he is sort of retired as a hero, at least during that time. We know that didn't stick. Says, "Yes, that's apparently when she hurt her hand. But she's been more or less hysterical until just a moment ago." And then the Vision says, "Listen, she has calmed enough to speak again." And so she says here, "My name is Anne Raymond. My husband was Thomas. You know him better as Toro, the partner of the original Human Torch." And Wasp says, "Isn't he dead? The Submariner reported him killed in a battle with the Mad Thinker. And she says, "Yep, that's what we believed until we heard. Until I heard about what happened to the Vision." And you can see the Wasp, or I'm sorry, the Scarlet Witch here. This is all going toward. We are gonna be heading toward a heel turn for Wanda. And she says, "The Vision, how could my husband's present situation have anything to do with your husband, Mrs. Raymond?" And the Vision says, "Calm yourself, my wife. I'm sure Mrs. Raymond has a logical reason for her statement." Now, one of the things that I find so funny about this is the fact that these androids slash robots are marrying these people. I am so she married Toro, who is a android slash robot, whatever. The Vision is with Wanda. She's so like my husband. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's a robot. And so she says, "Calm myself. How can I calm myself when the whole world has gone completely insane? Isn't it bad enough that I've had to see my husband dismantle his mind erased? Isn't it bad enough that a group trying to use me to find a way to possess all other mutants on Earth use the Vision's condition as an avenue of approach to lure me to their clutches? I do have a playlist, an Avengers playlist, where I've covered different eras. Check it out. I do have all of John Byrne's run up to this issue in there. And so Scarlet Witch continues. Now this mad woman wants to implicate the Vision in the death of her husband. And Wonder Man says, "Take it easy now, Wanda. It's not what Mrs. Raymond is saying. We've got to hear her out." And then he thinks here, the anguish in Wanda's voice. It's like claws raking at my soul. If only there was some way I could. And then she says, "Get your hands off me, Wonder Man." Again, shout out to the screen tones being applied. But as you notice here, they all seem to be the same as the previous one. And you're gonna see another era. But he doesn't change the screen tones. It seems like he's applying the very same ones here. And so Wanda storms off here and she says, I came back to the Avengers only because you promised this time you'd do something to help the Vision. If listening to this woman's babbling is your idea of help, then it seems the wisest thing the Vision and I can do is depart forever." And the Wasp tries to reach out, but the Vision says, "Let me deal with this. Although I'm no longer able to give her the emotional succor she needs, Wanda is still my wife, and my duty therefore lies with her." Oh, so this Vision has been transformed. He is different. He was taken apart and put back together, but his personality is sort of missing. And so Hank Pym says, "I'm sorry about that, Mrs. Raymond. Maybe you could tell us the whole story now." And so we're going to get a recap of two stories that basically happened in the 60s. So one of them happened in Fantastic Four Annual Number 4. And the other one happened in Submariner something. So I believe it's Submariner 14. I believe it's the second volume. So it's also from the 60s, like 69, I believe. I had looked at before. And so anyway, the wife continues. "I'll tell you as much as I know, Dr. Pym. As much as I saw, and as much as the Submariner told me. My husband had retired as a crime fighter. For years we lived in suburban contentment until one day." And so Raymond is looking at a newspaper. It says here, Torch, sorry. It says here, Torch was killed somehow, with the Fantastic Four the sole witnesses. And the wife is like, "Please, darling, keep out of this." But he says, but he couldn't. Sorry, she says. The newspaper articles gave the location of his former partner's funeral. Tom went to pay his last respect. He'd spoken of the Torch so often. I knew what he would have been thinking, and so he's saying his last goodbyes. He called me after the service, and so he says, "Yeah, it's pretty much all over, honey. Sweet and short. Funny though. There were no other superheroes here. I'd have thought Captain America at least would have come since we were in the Invaders together." And so the wife continues, "It was the last time I would ever speak to him." According to what Tom told the Submariner, he was stopped just outside the cemetery. And so this guy says, "Hey, I need to speak to you. It concerns your friend's death." And so he comes in, he goes, "Coffee, drugged. How did robots get drugged? Seriously." Uh, I know with comic books we have to like watching movies we have to suspend disbelief, but sometimes even in the late 80s early 90s this is just silly. Robots, androids, they don't get drugged. But all right. The Thinker needed Tom's flame powers as part of some scheme. He was in it with Egghead and the Puppet Master. And then Pym says he remembers that. And so she says, there's not much more to tell. Somehow the Thinker brainwashed Tom, made Tom think he was actually the Torch. It was the Thinker who tried to use the Torch to destroy the Fantastic Four. That was when the original Torch died. While he was under the Thinker's control, Tom found himself in a battle with the Submariner. Prince Namor managed to free Tom of the Thinker's influence. Again, the screen tones being applied, which I always love screen tones being applied, but I would have liked to have seen different type of screen tones being applied here. Anyway, it says here Prince Namor managed to free Tom of the Thinker's influence. My bad. I didn't. I skipped. And Tom, seeing the Thinker trying to escape in a rocket ship, used his own flame to propel the ship to drive it to a volcano. Of course. At first, I didn't know any of that, though. I only knew my husband was late coming back. Um, she went, and so she says she waited 24 hours, and she went to the cemetery here. And she says, "I found the cemetery closed, locked, and badly overgrown. I asked around town and was told that the cemetery had been closed for 30 years. They, if her husband came to a funeral, they couldn't have been buried there." And so when she got home, Submariner was waiting for her, and he told her everything that happened here. And so the Wasp comes and says that makes sense. There was a memorial service for the Torch eventually, but the at the recommendation of the Fantastic Four, no attempt was made to recover his body from where they left it. As far as anyone knew, the Torch was still in the Thinker's lab. And Pym says, right, according to the vision of to the version of this story, the vision was given by Immortus. It was there that Ultron found 5 found the Torch and began the process of turning the fallen android into the Vision. And she says, "Yes, I read in the papers that you recently found the Vision is not the original Torch, and I hoped, if that was all wrong, maybe the Submariner was wrong too. Maybe that wasn't Tom who died in the volcano. Maybe it was really the Torch again." So, and you see U.S. Agent. I love it. Just looking. And so the Wasp says, "Wow, do you think that could be possible, love?" And keep in mind, they're divorced during this time. I love this. He's using a brush, most likely. Nice, thick, thin. Oh, just beautiful. I love thick lines. So, um, anyway, Hank Pym says, Jan, at this point, I'm ready to believe anything. Says the Thinker was able to restore the Torch to life in the first place. I guess he could well have done it again. Although none of that would tell us where Tom Raymond has been all these years. And the wife says, "But you will help me, won't you? You will help me find out what really happened to my husband." Go get a new guy, lady. All right. People attached to these robots. See what I mean? All right. And Hank Pym says, "We'll do what we can, Mrs. Raymond. Jan, why don't you escort her to one of the guest rooms? I'm sure she could use some rest." And so she gets to regular size and takes her to it. And U.S. agent says, "Pym, do you actually buy this poor woman's fantasies?" And he says, "No, at least not all of it. Not without cross checking some of the details with the Submariner at our East Coast headquarters. Then we'll see what's to be seen." And then Submariner, you see Jarvis coming by, says, "Yep, everything I told her was true." So, um, and Pym asked if he would recognize Toro. It's been a lot of years, and he says, "Well, a lot of that time is sort of in an amnesic fog." So, and he then says, "Still, I saw no doubt to doubt the story of Thomas Raymond told me, and the fact that he was indeed missing when I sought out his wife to tell her of his sad end adds weight to the tale." And so the Avengers continue here, and he says, "Well, that pretty much finishes that part off. I think we're reasonably safe in assuming it was Toro who died, and died without reason since the Mad Thinker escaped." And so there's this alarm, and he goes into the lab, and they see Tigra, who is completely feral and cat-like, and she got shrunk by Pym when she tried to eat him, and well, she just attacked him, but and so U.S. agent then says, "This explains her behavior over the past few days. At any rate, according to our cook, Tigra has been hunting mice in the pantry. And the other day, when I went to her quarters to question her about it, her response was most feline." And so that angers Wonder Man. He says, "You know about this? Why didn't you tell anyone?" And he says, "I was busy." Watch your tone, Williams. I don't have to explain myself to you. I only answer to the United States government." And he says, "Guess again, Stripes. This is what I mean. This would have been done with different screen tones. I think would have served better here." Um. Anyway, Wonder Man continues, "You're an Avenger now. We didn't want you, but to avoid further government interference in our business, we've been forced to take you. And you're gonna learn that being an Avenger means being responsible to all the other members. We don't even know where you are half the time." And U.S. agent is not gonna take his gruff. I love these types of panels here, like this, where it just cuts off. There's no background, and he doesn't bother doing the entire outline for the panel, just enough. And I love those. So big fan of this. Um, Anyway, U.S. agent says, "Where I am is on your need to know list. Only when you can see me. Only when you can see me, Wonder Man. The rest of the time, you don't have the security clearance to know any more than I choose to tell you, and I chose to tell you nothing." And he's like, "Oh, really? Well, maybe a few broken bones will change your." And of course, she goes and separates them. And so Hank asks if she got her settled, and she says yes. And they used a sleep inducer so that she would rest. And so now he goes to the Vision and Scarlet Witch and repeats the story. And so Vision says, "I suggest too that further information concerning my exact nature might be discovered in the examination of the torch. After all, according to what you've told me, there were at least two occasions on which I was actually recognized as being the torch." And so um, we're going to kind of skip all this here, and we are gonna kind of keep moving on. But they're gonna make mention of Immortus, who is partly responsible during the creation of the Human Torch, and so we see that Immortus has been watching this, and he says, "You are now, you are only now beginning to see the culmination of a plan set in motion long ago, a plan which, when it achieves fruition I don't know what I know what it means, but fruition, fruition. There we go. Will make Immortus truly that which I have always claimed to be, the absolute master of time itself. And so we are now putting, so we have that plot thread, and but there's a second plot thread here. And this lady wants to see Preston, and the secretary says no. And so she goes to see him and asks him if she needs anything before lunch. He says no, I'm good. And so he thinks here, I have much to reconsider. So much has changed in the time I was trapped in Mephisto's diabolical realm. Things I might once have failed to consider are now clear to me. I have been wrong. I have been going about this all wrong, wasting time and energy on a fruitless quest. Now I understand that, as I understand what must be done next. Let the Avengers count the last hours of their last days. Sorry, count the hours of their last days. My bad. When next we meet, it will be Master Pandemonium who is triumphant. So this is working its way toward the Scarlet Witch's heel turn. And so they go to Pleasantville here, and we're just gonna kind of skip some of these parts here, but they're basically asking for permission to exhume the body, and the cemetery has been closed, yada yada yada. They don't know if they can get it, and so here the Avengers are at the cemetery, and they didn't even put the name; it just says Human Torch, and they wonder what the body looks like, and so the Vision goes and investigates, and this part is so creepy. Love, these are different screen tones being applied. They look awesome, and this is so creepy but funny. And so he goes, it is him, as anticipated. His artificial body shows no sign of decomposition. So why the hell did they bury him? And so Wanda's like, all right, so there is a body down there that looks like the original Torch. What are we going to do about it? And Wonder Man says, wait for Hank. It's all we can do. We can't legally open the grave without the proper papers. And she's going to have none of it. She's like, papers? The Scarlet Witch will not be bound by human bureaucracy. Don't you everybody wish they could do something like that? Wonder Man tries to stop her, but it's done, and the ground is trembling. And as we remember from the cover, we see this big flame, and the Human Torch goes out, and Wonder Man's gonna go after him. We get an interlude here, and this is something else that's building. The children have disappeared. This is the babysitter. She's looking for it. The doorbell rings, and a mysterious figure comes through. Now, this is Agatha Harkness, and this is her cat. So that's why there's two sets of eyes, but see what I mean, the same screen tone pretty much being applied every which way. So and so Agatha Harkness says, don't be alarmed, child. I'm here to assist you in the governing of your most difficult charges, meaning the kids. So that'll be coming up, and so he's gonna try to catch him, and there's the Human Torch, and so they stop. Now it looks like they're gonna fight, but they're not gonna actually fight, and so they're gonna have it a big explanation, and then here they come, and so it is the original Human Torch, and the Vision says, "Welcome back, Human Torch. I'm certain the world will be a better place for your return to it." And so they shake hands, and she says, "Oh wow, nobody has a camera." And so we now get to the end here. And so Hank Pym continues, I've completed correlating everything we know about you, Torch, and it turns up some interesting answers about the Vision's past. And so all the Avengers are waiting. And it says, a couple of years back, a young woman named Frankie Ray was revealed as being a Human Torch herself. As she told the Fantastic Four, her stepfather was Professor Horton, the man who created the original Torch. Apparently, he was incensed that the youngest member of the FF took a familiar code name. And so you can see him freaking out here. Horton took Frankie to an old chemical warehouse and showed her some things amazing. And so this is where he created the torch. Horton, the girl, tried to remove some of the stored equipment and chemicals. The old floorboards gave way under Frankie's foot. She felt the chemicals slosh and grow hot inside the drum, and the next thing she knew, Frankie Ray was engulfed in the flames. So that is how I did not even know that. So look at that. We learned something. I remember Frankie Ray from being in the Fantastic Four. She ended up becoming a Herald of Galactus. And so that's what because I have read all of John Byrne's Fantastic Four run, and so she asks Scarlet Witch, "What has all this to do with the Vision?" And she says, "Remember the Sentinel who identified the Vision as being the same age as the original Human Torch? My guess is Ultron 5 found Horton's molds and chemicals and used them to create the Vision. That's why the Vision seems vaguely familiar to you, Torch. For all intents and purposes, he was constructed out of your spare parts. But this is all conjecture, is it not, Dr. Pym? We have no way to test this theory. Except for that little trip I took through you years ago as Ant-Man. At that time, I was surprised to see parts that I recognized as World War II vintage. Later, when it was revealed that you were the Torch, I thought that was the answer. And that was way back in Avengers 94. And so the Wasp is impressed and gives him a peck in the cheek here. And so she brings this package to the original Human Torch, and it's a new costume. They invite him to join the Avengers. He says yes. Again, a beautiful use of screen tones, and he accepts, and he gets emotional. He's about to cry, and I'm like, oh my god. But there we go. And so they're about to go celebrate, but they hear a noise, and they're gonna go outside and see, and they point up, and you can see Wasp says it's him, and Wonder Man says after all these months, and you can see Hank just kind of looking up, and we are going to have our page turn, which is the return of Iron Man. Remember Iron Man, and I have a you see here, Iron Man's back, and I have a playlist that I'm covering Armor Wars, which is going to cover all this and reason why Iron Man is no longer in the Avengers. And I love the Bob Layton-ish type inking that was done here. That is pretty cool. So Iron Man has returned. What an awesome panel. John Byrne is so good at this stuff. So drawing comics, writing comics, John Byrne is so good. So, all right, Avengers West Coast number 50 by John Byrne, assisted by Mike Macklin in the inking. Gosh, this is such a good image. Like and subscribe, and I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.